When underdogs opened up the postseason by going 9-4 against the spread, I reminded you, as I always do, that everything is cyclical when it comes to gambling. And since then, it's been a bettor's delight when it comes to laying the wood, because the favorites over the past 6 days have gone 12-5-1 versus the number. Last night, a perfect 3-0 sweep by the Chalks, as they all won easily by double-digit margins. Hi, everyone. DeMarco here, and this is going to be your Tuesday video report. I've won 7 of my last 8 complimentary plays. They've all been in the NBA. Unfortunately, the 7-0 run came to an end last night because I backed the dog, the Milwaukee Bucks. I told you that strange series was a difficult one to forecast because there had been no pattern. There had been no consistency among those two teams. And last night, the Raptors showed up and decided, hey, we're going to kick the Bucks' ass. Well, tonight I'm going to take a look at a series which has certainly had no pattern, but I do think there is a certain trend that has developed. And I'm going to talk about that series between LA and the Utah Jazz. And the pattern is this. For the Clippers, it's like deja vu all over again. Haven't we seen this script play out before? Clippers get to the postseason, one of their big three gets injured, and they choke and collapse once more. Blake Griffin, gone. Hey, probably for good in terms of the Clippers if he doesn't re-sign with them here in his free agent year. But we saw what happened. You know, the Clippers, a game effort in game number 4 on Sunday. There they were. They had game number 4 in hand at Salt Lake. And you couldn't have asked for a better scenario because there was Gordon Hayward, the Jazz's top scorer, coming off that magnificent 40-point effort in game number 3. He only played like 9 minutes and change before they sent him home at halftime because he was stricken by a case of food poisoning. So he was out of the lineup. True, you had Rudy Gobert come back after playing just 17 seconds in the opener after suffering a hyperextended knee. He made a miraculous return, but the Clippers still had the Jazz on the ropes because in the fourth quarter, they were up 87-80. And then suddenly the Jazz simply took over. They closed out that game on a 25-11 run. And you saw one of the things that veteran coaches and general managers and teams always talk about, the value of having veterans come playoff time. Listen, for many years, I always thought that Joe Johnson was a good player on bad teams. But you saw Joe Johnson's playoff experience pay off here in this series in game number 1 when he led him to the upset win in LA, and in game number 4 down the stretch because he scored 13 of his game-high 28 points in the fourth quarter. Hell, at one stage, he scored 11 straight points. And when you think about the contributions that Joe Johnson has made here in the postseason, when you think about the contributions that George Hill, what a difference he made when he was in the lineup versus out of the lineup so many times this season at point guard for the Jazz. Those two veterans have really guided this relatively inexperienced Jazz team, plus the great coaching job that Quinn Snyder has done for Utah, especially here in this playoff series where they played so shorthanded so frequently. And that's why I've got to jump on the Jazz as a 3-point favorite. Now, this line was 3.5 earlier today, but with the news that first that their top player, Hayward, was going to be with the team traveling to LA, and then with Hayward going to be listed as probable for the contest, well, the line obviously dropped. Listen, you have the Clippers that, oh, big deal, Austin Rivers is going to make his series debut. It isn't going to make a difference in this game because you saw what happened without Blake Griffin in the lineup, how the Jazz absolutely dominated down low and in the paint. Not only did Rudy Gobert go 6 for 6 for his field goal from the field, finishing with 15 points, but he also grabbed 13 rebounds in 24 very active minutes for a guy who had only played 17 seconds in the series. But then you also saw Derek Favors, who played extended minutes in the first 2 games in the series with Gobert out. But then game 3 in a season high, I think 38 minutes, just was so ineffective, was really running on fumes. But then he responded by hitting 7 out of 10 field goals and finishing with 17 points. And suddenly the Jazz came alive. And DeAndre Jordan, who had dominated in games 2 and 3 in the paint, he was held relatively quiet to 12 points and 10 assists. And really the only 2 guys powering the Clippers offense was Jamal Crawford, who in games 1, 2, and 3 was muted, and Chris Paul. And you're asking yourself, well, whatever happened to J.J. Redick? Well, that's a question that everybody in Clipperland is answering or asking, because he had 12 points, but 3 for 11 from the field. He has been silenced throughout this series. They started Maurice Spites at power forward in 21 minutes. What did he do in place of Blake Griffin? Well, he had 5 points and 4 rebounds and shot 2 for 8. The Clippers are in trouble, and the Jazz are the team that now have momentum on their side and are playing with confidence. This is a series that, of course, has long been dominated by the Clippers, but they had their chance on Sunday and they blew it. So I've got to grab whatever points I can, and I'm going to take the Jazz in this one, and I like them to win this game outright. Now, would I play them on the money line in this contest? No. It's just not worth the investment there. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take them plus the points here tonight and go with Utah as the dog, because yes, the favorites on a roll. They're 12-5-1 in the last 18 games. And yes, they're coming off the 3-0 sweep last night. But once more, everything is cyclical. So I don't think this is the time to suddenly think that all the favorites are going to suddenly start covering again here tonight. Now, in your other game between San Antonio and Memphis, well, you had the Spurs dominate with double-digit wins in games 1 and 2. Extending their winning streak at home in the series. And then you had, of course, Grizzlies coming back, taking game number 3 in a rout, and then holding on for dear life, blowing the 8 or 7 point lead down the stretch in regulation in game number 4 before winning in overtime. It's a tough game tonight. You know, I'll tell you what, I think the Spurs can win this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they covered in this game, but I think at this 10-point margin, it's just a game that, I don't know, personally, I'm going to stay away from in this contest, because the Spurs have really had some major problems here with their defense in this series. Their transition defense, what transition defense? I mean, they're a top 5 team in transition defense, and yet the Grizzlies, not exactly a fleet of foot team. These aren't exactly the Phoenix Suns running up and down the floor. These aren't the Golden State Warriors running up and down the floor. And yet you would think so, the way they run up the floor this series. And Mike Conley, after a horrific game number 1, he has just lit up anybody that has been playing him in this series. And then you look at LaMarcus Aldridge. Where did he go? I mean, Leonard has been phenomenal in this series. Look at his Game 4 performance when he closed regulation by scoring the Spurs' final 16 points. But LaMarcus Aldridge, he only had 29 points combined in Games 2 and 3. And Pau Gasol, you know, he hasn't scored more than 10 points in any of the first 4 games. Tony Parker, 22 points in game number 4, 0 points in game number 3. Tell me, what are we going to get from Tony Parker tonight? Manu Ginobili, 0 for 15. 0 for 15. In the 4 games in the series. You don't expect him to play like the Manu Ginobili of 5 years ago, but you expect him to have 1 field goal. So, and the other thing, the Grizzlies, 12 for 27 on 3-pointers in game number 4. This is, again, a Spurs team that was a top 5 3-point defensive team in the regular season. So, you know, I don't know what to make of this series tonight. I have a hunch that San Antonio will put it all together here tonight. But boy, you can't bet Hutchins, you know what I mean? And I think most bettors are probably looking at the results of games number 3 and 4, going to probably grab the points and take Memphis. And yet, let me just remind you again that in game number 1, the Spurs won 111-82, and they outshot Memphis 53.2% to 39.2%. And then they won game number 2 at home, 96-82, another double-digit win. And they outshot Memphis 45% to 37.8%. It's food for thought. So I'm going to once again go with Utah plus the points and lean a little towards San Antonio, but certainly not going to venture a play on it. Good luck, everybody. I'll talk to you again tomorrow when we do this again.